Alphabet Man, tearing down the strongholds, exposing the darkness, wrecking the enemy's plans. Endurance till the end. It's time for the Alphabet Man Live.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is the day the Lord has made. And I just want to say thank you to everybody for your encouragement, your edification, your support, your love, your emails, your messages, your cards, for everything. Thank you. And I appreciate each of you, even though, a lot of times I can't reach out to each individual. I'm going to try to start doing something to say thank you to the many people that I always feel led to, like, maybe jot a little note, and maybe that's what I'll start doing is just in my spare time writing little notes and then mailing them out with the newsletters each month. I don't know, we'll have to see what the Lord leads me into. So tomorrow morning I am leaving for Marquette, Michigan, for the Marquette, Michigan mission trip, bringing them truth in love because we love. And that is only possible because we were first loved. See, it's exactly what these individuals need. So if we don't go out there and tell them, then who's going to do it? Nobody. So I'm not saying that we're called to go into homosexual nightclubs or bars or bookstores or bathhouses, but they're not in the club or the bathhouse or the bookstore or the theater. They're in our streets. They're in our public streets. And so that's why we're called to be out in the public streets witnessing to them. I had a conversation yesterday with somebody who said, oh, David, I really think that you should go to church. I said, well, I have church. I said, almost every day. I said, because on Sundays we have an organic fellowship gathering that we gather at my house, or we gather at the Chiavi's house, or, and eventually soon we're going to be gathering in a building. But the idea of church to this person was the four walls of the church with a pastor and deacons and pews, and so in other words, just a mouth and ears and not a functioning body. And I told her, I said, I'm not called to participate in that. I'm called to evangelize and disciple. That's my only commission. It's twofold. And so if that's what I'm called to do, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to do it where? In all the world. I'm not going to the bars. I'm not going into the nightclubs. I'm not going into the buildings that call themselves churches. I'm not doing all that, because that's what they're doing in their buildings, in their establishments. But when they start bringing that out onto the public streets, that's where I'm going to be, and that's where I'm going to be most effective, because that's where I'm called, is into the public, into the streets, and into this vile, disgusting society that everybody thinks is normal. So I guess the point I wanted to get across is that your mission field can be wherever you want it to be, but it should be wherever the Lord has commissioned it to be. And so he has told us that the battlefield is the mission field, that when we walk outside of the doors of our homes and outside the doors of these buildings and just outside, we are in the battlefield. That is our mission field. So when the homosexuals and the transgenders and the pedophiles are trying to bring into public streets their wicked ways, then yeah, we're called to be there. We're called to be there. because they're bringing it out into a public venue, and we're called to be there, and we're called to speak truth and to do so in love because we love, and that's only possible because we were first loved. And so I just call everybody to just stand up and speak out and be a part of something instead of sitting back just saying, well, that group is going out, they'll be doing it, they'll be doing just fine. Well, you've been called to come out. And I can't imagine ever standing before the Lord and saying, but Lord, you know, I prayed for people in your name, and I even went to the building and laid hands on somebody who had gout and did so in your name. I even think I casted out some demons in your name. And I just can't imagine what it's going to feel like for those that have to hear those words, depart from me. I never knew you, you workers of iniquity. I can't imagine. And that's not the lost. Those are the ones that consider themselves Christian. So with that said, see what else we got going on. Monday, the 17th, as I come back in on Monday next week, I'll be interviewing J.R. Harrison of the Natural Family Foundation, and that should be great. J.R. has a whole other concept of what's going on, and there's a lot that that a lot of us don't see that is attacking the family unit. And so with that said, I want to dive into the Homosexual Manifesto, because I've taken up too much time already on events, but I want to dive into the Homosexual Manifesto because this is what is destroying our nation, our society, our family unit. And it even says so in part of their agenda. So the Homosexual Manifesto was written in 1987. As we go through this, I'm going to be commenting because I want everybody to know that how they have actually accomplished this agenda, how they have actually already done that. This is done. This is a done deal. And unless we know that this is a done deal and we accept it and realize it, we're not going to grasp the concept of what is coming for our children and our grandchildren. Not what is coming, but what has gotten here and what has a hold of them and what is preying on them at this very moment. This starts off, we shall sodomize your sons, emblems of your feeble masculinity. Of course, we know that the enemy is trying to destroy the image bearer of God, the masculinity of the head of the church, which is Jesus. So, of your shallow dreams and vulgar lies, we shall seduce them in your schools. Where are they at right now? They're in your schools. They're in preschool, in your dormitories. Colleges is a waste of money and time, because any college now, every single campus on this in this country has a course that reprimands the white heterosexual masculine male. Okay, every single college has a course on reprimanding the white heterosexual masculine male. In your gymnasiums, in your locker rooms, let me tell you, the locker room was the one place in any school that I was in that I was sure to not only get a show, but to be preyed upon, and usually by an older, either an older student or even teachers. In your sports arenas, in your seminaries, well, we see that with the Catholic Church, right? When you take men and tell them that they can't engage in what is natural for them to desire to engage in, and then you hand them soft, tender little boys, you know exactly what's going to happen. And it happens with the nuns too. In your youth groups, in your movie theater bathrooms, the movie theater bathroom was probably one of the most common places where I would go. We had a mall right down the road from us as I was growing up in New Jersey, and they had a movie theater, and I used to go to the movie theater, and I would be in every show. I would be at the movie theater from the time they opened to the time they closed, because I would be in and out of the bathroom. There would be peek holes, there would be glory holes. Glory holes, by the way, are not just peek holes, but they're holes big enough in the stall for you to actually put something through. Okay. I'd stand at urinals. You know, when Tom Dunn and I were on our week-long trip to Atlantic City, we went to the very public bathroom that I used to cut school and take a bus to and hang out at. I actually was able to stand in front of the very urinal that I stood in front of as a child when men, young and old, would come in and pray on me. Okay, so movie theater bathrooms, some of the biggest, one of the biggest places for this type of activity, for homosexual activity. And anymore, it's any public bathroom, in the malls, in the stores, rest stops, it doesn't matter where, it's happening. In your Army bunkhouses, we see how they went from no tell, don't tell, whatever, to let's just let them in. Let's just allow transgender soldiers to come in, because in order to be transgender, you have to be enduring extensive psychological care. If you need extensive psychological care, then you don't belong in our military holding a weapon, protecting somebody, or having somebody's back. Yeah, Jared, go ahead.
And on that, just recently, there was a lieutenant colonel who got relieved of duty for using the word faggot. He got relieved of duty during a deployment. Their leader was, wow. Now, I don't, you know what, like, whatever, right? But this guy said a word, and in the middle of a deployment of military operations in the Mediterranean, he was relieved of command for saying a word. Regardless, I don't care what that word was, you know what I mean?
Exactly, because you know what, if that doesn't tell you the reach and the pull that this movement has, that the enemy has, because it's not just about the LGBT movement. It's not just about the pedophile movement. It's not just about the abortion movement. It's not just about the family unit. It's about this darkness, this perversion that is enveloping our children and our grandchildren. And so it goes on to say, in your truck stops, well, of course, every single, you know, there was a time in my life when I actually drove down 95 south, probably as far as Georgia, and then back, all the way back up. And I hit every rest stop, every rest area, every public bathroom south, and I did the same thing north. And I engaged in activity in almost every single one of those rest stops. That's what's going on. I want women who are out there who are not godly. Might have a form of godliness, but women and men who aren't godly. And I want women to understand that the men that go into these rest stops and into these public bathrooms and engage in this activity are usually married men. Okay? I for one, had many experiences where I watched, and two that stand out to me is one where I watched this man who had just engaged in some filthy bodily fluid exchanging events with me, walk out of that rest stop, get in the car with his wife, kiss her, and then drive off. The other one was a man that I engaged in activity with in the rest stop, and I watched him go out and get in the car with his wife and kids and drive off. And what touched me about that, what moved me about that the most, was that something within me told me that those kids knew more than his wife knew. At least one of his children knew more than his wife knew, and knew it because they'd experienced something with him. In your all-male clubs. Yeah, go ahead, Jared.
And on that, she knows. She's got to know, right? It's willful ignorance. And with that willful ignorance, who pays the price? Who pays the price from her willful ignorance?
You know, I can say this. I used to try to give women a message because I want women to understand that unless you are in a godly relationship with a man who loves the Lord God Almighty, Jesus Christ, more than he loves you, then you need to beware, because the men that used to come visit me, some of them were clients, some of them were just there because they just wanted to engage in sexual activity with me. The whole time I would be trying to willfully, to purposely and intentionally infect them with HIV, because in my mind, I wanted to get their wife or the girlfriend or their fiance too. You know, and there's quite a few stories out there about some of the things that I've done. And one of them was a boy. He was 14 when I started messing with him. And he was 18 when I stopped messing with him. And I saw him in a store one day with his girlfriend and a newborn baby. And I could look in his face and I could tell that he was sick. I could tell that I had accomplished what I had set out to do by infecting him. But then I got saved. And then that started weighing on me, and I started wondering, did I kill his girlfriend or wife and the baby too? Did I? It took me a couple years to grasp the knowledge that God's grace is sufficient and that his forgiveness meant he forgave all. But I was blessed to get into contact with this young man in 2016. And I was blessed to meet with this young man. And although, yes, his girlfriend was infected and she at that time had went like AWOL, she was MIA because she couldn't grasp the idea that she had been infected by her man who was infected by another man. So she was MIA. She was out on the streets. As far as I know, she was doing like drugs and alcohol and going downward in that spiral fall. But his son wasn't infected. The baby wasn't infected. The baby was protected. And that said a whole lot for me. And so I was able to meet with this young man, and the first thing he said to me was, "Can I hug you?" And when I said yes, because I was really expecting him to hit me or to shoot me or stab me or something, but he said, "Can I hug you?" And when he hugged me, he said, "I forgive you." And I told him that's all I wanted, and he said, "I don't hold you responsible. I don't hold you responsible for my actions. We reap what we sow." And that whole scenario had just extreme meaning to me, and it really set me free. And it really gave me an in-depth knowledge of the Lord and what he's capable of, you know, even in our everyday lives. So they go from your all-male clubs into your houses of Congress, which we see this is where this movement has moved to. Wherever men are with men together, your sons shall become our minions and do our bidding. They will be recast in our image. They will come to crave and adore us. The LGBTP movement is telling the world in 1987 that they will sodomize your sons, that they will recast your sons in their image. You know, they're out to destroy the masculine image bearer of God, the masculinity that resides in the image bearer of God. And then it tells you that your children will come to crave and adore us. It makes me think about when Tom Dunn and I were in Pennsylvania and we saw that apostate church and their marquee said, "Let my children go." Well, that is, of course, a twisted version of "let my people go" that Moses spoke of, but they want you to let your children, they want, one, it says, "let my children go." So they want your children to be their children, first of all. But two, they're saying, "let my children go." Stop holding them back. Hand them over to us, sacrifice them. Put them on that little yellow bus to hell. Hand us your children. Sacrifice your children and your grandchildren to us, because we're going to recast them in our image and they're going to come to crave and adore us. And what we see right now in this society, in these children, in our youth, is that they crave and adore the LGBTP for pedophile movement. They adore it. They promote it. They stand up for it. They love it. They think that it is love, and they're running to it in their brokenness. They're clinging to it because this movement will accept anyone in any brokenness. And as it accepts them, it lets them know you don't have to change. You're just the way you're supposed to be. So the manifesto goes on to say, "Women, you cry for freedom. You say you're no longer satisfied with men. They make you unhappy. Well, we, connoisseurs of the masculine face, the masculine physique, shall take your men from you then. We will amuse them. We will instruct them. We will embrace them when they weep." You know, when I was in prison, a lot of the guys that openly said, you know, "I don't get down like that. I don't mess around," but they would come to me because they could talk to me, and I would embrace them when they wept. And let me tell you, after I embraced them when they wept, one thing always led to another, and they ended up engaging in the sin of homosexuality in some way, shape, or form. "We shall give your men pleasures they have never known, because we are foremost men too." And one of the biggest cliches and fallacies of this movement was, "and only one man knows how to truly please another man. Only one man can understand the depth and feeling, the mind and body of another man." And let me tell you this, that was one of my biggest lines was, well, nobody can satisfy a man better than another man, because a man knows what a man likes, right? Well, wrong. Because outside of the lust of our flesh, in our coming together as one flesh, as we are created to, one male, one female, to come together as one flesh, only a woman can satisfy that, because only a man and a woman can have a fruitful relationship. Two men cannot be fruitful. Two women cannot be fruitful. And just like a conversation I had yesterday with somebody who totally didn't have any clue that oral sex and anal sex were both sodomy. They're both sodomy. See, sodomy is defined as a crime against nature. That's it. So, and then, which surprises me, because the 1828, Webster's 1828 says a crime against nature is what the definition of sodomy is. But then in the newer Webster Merriam, it says that it consists of oral, anal, and bestiality, because that's an anal or oral copulation with a member of the same sex or opposite sex, also copulation with an animal, bestiality. So sodomy is not just engaging in anal sex. A sodomite is not just two homosexuals, two men. Sodomites are those who are engaging in anal, oral, or animal sex, anything that is against nature, anything that is outside of the fruitful order that God has ordained and intended in his good creation. So I think we need to understand it, because somebody asked me yesterday, well, why does, I don't know if I agree with that, because what's wrong with a man going down on a woman and pleasuring her? Well, can you have a baby by doing that? No, you can't. It's unfruitful. It's an unfruitful act. That satisfies the lust of our flesh. So if it satisfies the lust of our flesh, it is unpleasing and unacceptable unto our Lord. All laws banning homosexual activity will be revoked. Hello. Instead, legislation shall be passed which engenders love between men. Hello. All homosexuals must stand together as brothers. We must be united artistically, philosophically, socially, politically, and financially. This movement is the most well-funded and well-unified movement that I've ever seen, because it's absorbed all the other movements. Because when I say this movement, it includes the LGBT, the abortion, the feminist, the Islamic, the racial. It includes everything. The pedophile movement, it's all one. And so this movement is the most focused, most funded, most organized and unified movement that exists on this planet today. I should be saying that about Christians. I should be saying that about God's children, about the church. But there's more division and lack of support and lack of edification and lack of encouragement and lack of reproof and lack of correction that we dare not even go up against this movement, right? We will triumph only when we present a common face to the vicious heterosexual enemy. Folks, we are all heterosexual by design and by intent. The more that we use lines and read lines like to say the vicious heterosexual enemy, is not only to plant that word vicious with heterosexual, but to steer people to believe that heterosexual is a separate orientation from homosexual, and heterosexual is not the opposite of homosexual. The opposite of homosexual is redeemed, it's saved, it's justified, it's freed from the bondage of sin, because homosexual is a sin. So if you dare to cry faggot, fairy, queer at us, we will stab you in your cowardly hearts and defile your dead, puny bodies. We shall write poems of love between men. We will stage plays in which men openly caress men. And we've seen all this. This has all happened already in the last 20 years. Making films about the love between heroic men. They'll replace the cheap, superficial, sentimental, insipid, juvenile, heterosexual infatuations presently dominating your cinema screens. They will sculpt statues of beautiful young men. See, it always goes down to the young, right? Because they want your youth, because this movement wants your children and your grandchildren, and they don't only want them, but they have them, and you keep handing them over to them. And so when they are abused and used and tore up and passed around and profited off of and then tossed out like a piece of garbage, and then they become today's drug addicts and rapists and murderers and alcoholics and prostitutes and sex traffickers. Pat yourself on the back, because you're the one that helped them become what they're becoming. We're out of time. God bless you all. See you tomorrow. Peace.